the capping plate. That caught me last time. I'm not getting fooled again. Let's get that latched down. The capping plate should be latched down before you start the mirror knot. The mirror, you lower that after you start getting things in place, before you push this all the way back in. Alright, 2 screws at the base. We may be exactly back where I started this process. I may not have advanced my position at all. I might just have returned it to where we started from, in which case I'm going to be back in here once more. That certainly needs to be advanced. So I've just got to move that rack slightly. Let's try that. Right, it's going to need more than that. Now I think my pinion moved while I was doing that. Well, that's within the tooth. Right. No, that went exactly back where it started from. Now one tooth too far. Not far enough. That looks right. Okay, with that part correct, let's go back, see what happens when I put the shutter in place. So the spring for our flash contact, our shutter, which I'll make sure is not cocked. That's good. Swing that round, ready to receive this. Just checking the state of that lens to make sure that I haven't put any greasy fingerprints on it. Swing this around. Now if I move that lever slightly, I can get this all seated. I have. What happens? We might be right back where we started off. Or we're worse. I need to be around further than that. Time to start making some marks, I think, so I can tell where I've been. It needs to be advanced around until it's somewhere almost horizontal, I think. At that position. Whereabouts are we? That's in the released position. What about we cunning and set that somewhere I can find it? We know that needs to be further advanced. I'm picking by about 2 teeth. Those balls that are sitting in there, they're just sitting there glued in place with that grease. If there was no grease, they wouldn't be staying there. Let's lift this off. Now, we'll check this. I'll revolve this until that is caught behind there. That just gives me a starting point. And that is at, let's make a little mark on here. That's at that angle. And I want it to come round this way. So I need to rotate that pinion clockwise. Once more into the bridge. Whoops, that spring just flew off. Well, we'll have to put that back. Let's see where we are. That's certainly further round than it was. I'm going to try it there. Well, I won't bore you with this. I'll let you know when I've got it right. You've seen the principle. Basically, I've just got to shift things around until the timing is correct. And for one reason or another, I didn't get it right the first time. So, once I'd got that gear timing correct, you can see that the shutter and the diaphragm open up correctly and the shutter fires correctly. So that's all done. That was a bit of a marathon struggle, and mostly that was due to me just not moving things in the correct direction. It was not unexpected that things would not be correctly timed to start off with, but when I went to make my changes to correct the problem of the timing, I simply did it the wrong way round. So there was no danger that that was going to work. Now I'm going to put my fixing screws in place to hold the shutter assembly on here. Now there's one place that this goes, because there's a little hole here where you can poke a paper clip or something in order to lift out that chrome ring, which is often stuck well in its groove. Of course, at the moment that could be anywhere, because I haven't seen where I've placed that. So I've just got to shift this ring around until I can see it. I've seen it. Okay. That blank hole is just about here. I need it to be there so I can move that ring around, pick it up, I can see it, so I'll get my 4 screws in there. Do them up lightly, because this is also my focus adjustment. So I'll get those 4 screws in, do them up lightly. And that'll stop the front falling off the camera while I'm getting everything else in place. I can assemble the rest of the controls to the front of the shutter. Slacken those off, shift this focus scale ring round to the infinity end of its scale. Somewhere about there. And I'll do that once more. Let's try doing those 2 up. Yeah, focus is moving smoothly. Of course it'll need to be adjusted, but it's moving smoothly. That's a good start. We'll try the self-timer and see if that'll work for us. Set the shutter speed to, let's set it to an 8. 8 should be around about there. That sounded credible to me. I can make my adjustments from the front, so that's all good. Well, so far so good. I can start reassembling the front of the shutter. Well, the weekend's come and gone. I think I will check these screws holding the front panel to the body, because I don't remember whether I tightened them up or not. It looks like I did. And our shutter should work. And it certainly seems to. Okay. So what have I not done here? I have not set the shutter speed correctly yet, I think. Haven't adjusted it. I would have said that that was a little bit slow. I'll go and test that on my shutter speed tester. In order to achieve that conveniently, I'll put a shutter release button in the top there. I've got to gather together my bins of parts, and one of these little bins of parts will have my shutter release button in it. I'm getting close, and that would have had a return spring, and there's the release. And I could put a button on the top of the release, I suppose, just for convenience and comfort. I'll go and test this, I'll report back about the speed, then I'll come back and make adjustments. That speed was indeed a bit slow, probably about 10%, which is not bad. I'll cock the shutter. Now to get at the adjustment screw, it's down here and I can't access it easily, I think, from there. Oh, I might be able to. Let's have a go. Basically, I've got to swing the retard gear train outwards for lesser engagement with the cam. I'm just looking at this adjustment screw there. That's the screw that locks it. There's, yeah, I can loosen that. And can I move the cam outwards? Let's just get a better pair of tweezers so I've got a point to push with. These ones. That moved. Let's do that screw up there. Let's see what sort of result we get. Whoops. Set that to an 1/8. I don't know whether that made a difference. I'll have to test it. No, it was still slow. And I've just moved this speed cam, and unfortunately I've moved it too far the other way now, so it's too fast. To nudge this over very slightly. That was too much. I'll go and test that. Okay, we're in business. That's good. That speed's fine now, so I can close up the rest of the shutter at the front of the camera. I'll just pop those release parts aside and find the front rings for the shutter. Now these go on in a certain order. And we start with this piece. There's a location pin that drops into that little slot there. check that everything's moving, nothing appears to be trapped under anything. That all looks good. There are 4 screws that hold that in position. And if I'd been clever, I'd have had them all set out here ready to go, but what have I done with them? Here we have them, along with that damaged lever from the shutter that I'd replaced. So using a pair of tweezers to hold that screw and guide it down into the hole. There are 4 screws. I'll get them all positioned and loosely tightened down, and then I'll come back and tighten them up. These are nickel plated, these screws. Seems good. Let's tighten those screws up. So far so good. Now there's the lens mount piece here that needs to go on, and this little baffle plate that goes on there first. This piece has a locating pin on it somewhere. There's the locating pin here, lines up with that slot at the top there. That looks neat and tidy, and there are how many small screws? 4 small screws hold this down. Yep. It'll be set by the magnetised screwdriver nuisance. That's their shutter speed adjustment there. It's making sure there's nothing trapped, everything appears to be neat and tidy and correctly positioned. So I can nip those 4 screws up. These 2 rings go in next. Go in like that. Yeah, it's not an awful lot wanted here. This ring at the back bears down on 2 leaf spring arrangements inside the back of the housing here. So I'll just put a wipe of molybdenum paste on those surfaces. That should do it. This needs to go on. This little slot here has to couple with our shutter speed slot over here. So it's only a little bit cumbersome. Yeah, just like that. That seems fine. Now there's a little ball detent here. It detents our shutter speed settings at this point. I'll just put a touch of molybdenum paste over that. Make sure it stays nice and smooth running. Getting the two front rings here is always entertaining. There's a small notch in this ring that has to couple with our shutter speed setting. And it will sit like that when it's all in place. But to get it all in place, we need to get this thing over the top, which means we have to lift this up so we can get this over the top here. And then that will drop down into position with a bit of luck, coupled with that shutter speed setting. Is it going to do it? No, it's not sitting flush. That's it, sitting there. But something is jammed. Yeah, the rings have come out of position. Let's see if we can get these seated again. That's seated correctly. Get that loosely in position. That's got to end up there. Let's get this front piece in position. That's correct. Now the nameplate, the number plate, is holding me up. It's stopping me getting this thing seated. Now that's better, I've just moved it across. Let's check that that moves. The shutter speeds are all clicking nicely, everything sounds like it's working correctly. Now the three screws that hold this front plate in place are small chromed brass screws, and are easily damaged, as chrome screws frequently are. I'll run that down lightly, get its two mates in place. This little number plate here, the numbers that are supposed to match your lens set, that floats, and basically what happens is if it drifts out this way, you can't get this front chrome ring down in place behind it, and that's what was happening. I mean, tighten these three screws up. check that everything that moves as it should do. Blow any dust out of there. So that's our shutter assembled to the front. That ring is not correctly positioned after all that. Okay, back where I was. The aperture setting ring was not sitting correctly. That's where it should be. Check that I've got it in the right position this time. I have. Oh, it's a fine day out there. I really should be out enjoying that weather. Well, that looks promising. Very good. Well, I think I'll put the front lens group in on the strength of that. Making sure I line up the red dot. And that lens group, I really need to clean that. But I'm not going to do it just yet because there's every likelihood I'll manage to get a fingerprint on it before now and the time I'm finished. And you don't need to be cleaning lenses more often than you want to. Okay, so that looks good. With the lens in place, I can move on to adjusting my focus and making sure that that's correct.